All right, so we'll start off with what inspired you to join the military?
Well, I grew up in the town of Sausalito, a waterfront town. I learned how to sail, and one of the main things that came up was that each fall on Navy Day in October, a destroyer would anchor out in front of Sausalito, and I was a little kid, and the big thrill was to go out there and get ice cream without limit, and that got me interested in the Navy. I learned how to sail, and in time, I said I wanted to serve. I wanted to go to the Naval Academy.
So adding on to that, did anyone in your family or your dad affect your decision to join the military?
My dad served in World War II. He was a Navy seaman, and he took great pride in my serving in World War II, I can assure you of that. But let me talk about how important World War II is to be a member of America's Greatest Generation. I think, I'm 97 years old and in the twilight of my life, but my greatest memory is, the realization is that I served my country in combat in time of war. And I get all choked up as I say those words. And last Thursday night I was at a dinner at the Stanford Business School Military Appreciation Night. And I was introduced as a member of America's Greatest Generation, the only veteran of World War II in the House, and the house just broke down. I mean, my God, I never had, there were tears running down my house. And after the dinner, people, there must have been 20 people who came up and said, "Thank you for your service, thank you for your service." This is what it means to me to be a member of that group. There are not many of us left. There's 17 million started, but they're just a handful rattling around. But I mean, you know what? Here, I'll give you a tip on how to make the most of your life. And that is that every day, try to find something that is unexpected by the other party. Sending a note, making a telephone call. You're on the phone trying to get the reservation somewhere, and say a nice word to the operator. "Oh, you have a great voice." Those women just light up, and it will add to your enjoyment of life if that is part of your attitude. And think about it. Fire away, broadside me.
So can you describe your time in the military and any memorable experiences you had?
Yeah, well, I went to the Naval Academy. I was a midshipman, and in December of 1941, a word came in from Pearl Harbor that the war was on, and I was so happy to be there. And after the Naval Academy, I had one year of combat in the Western Pacific on a ship, and my ship was shot at by we called them Japs in those days, more politely the Japanese today. And the ship was kamikaze, but obviously the airplane missed me because here I am. But it was just exciting for me to think back on that period and realize how much pleasure I get from being fired at or kamikaze, but just really getting excited about serving my country. And remember, you guys are Boy Scouts. You're serving in your own way, and you're an inspiration to those of us who admire you.
So were you ever, since you were a kid, did you ever think of joining any other branch, or was it always Navy?
No, I was very happy in the Navy, and you guys look like you're all going to West Point, but that's okay. But I have no sympathy for Army and the Army-Navy football game. I mean, but I'm respectful of the other services. You guys are firing good questions at me. I mean, you got me scared to death here.
All right, so upon exiting the military, what set you apart from people that hadn't followed a service-oriented pathway?
Say that again.
So upon exiting the military, what set you apart from people that hadn't followed a service-oriented?
Yeah. Well, my story, in brief, is that if you want to live to be 97, there are two things you should do. One is to exercise on a regular basis, and the other is that you find some passions other than family that will let you focus on life. I mean, I'm having more fun in life at the age 97 than I've ever had. I'm more productive and I'm happier, and what a gift. So may you guys live so long, each one of you.
Yeah, so adding back on, looking back on that, all the skills that you gained during your time in the military, what do you think helped you out the most in your life post-military?
I think it was the love of others. I mean, when you get in a combat situation, you're counting on that person to do his job to the very best of his ability. And you know that everybody around you has that attitude. And I think that I learned, or it was impressed on me, that how important people are. And it's just, you know, you guys are getting me all emotional here, getting all talking here so seriously. Huh? By the way, you're doing a great job. You're just plumbing my depths.
So how has your military service impacted your career and commitment to public service?
Well, I think that late in life I learned what public service was. And I've now had what I call 5 decades, 50 years of public service, where I've not had a job, I've nobody to tell me what to do, but I found this or that to get my interest. And I've, as you know, out of my own head came 2 national programs, and each year millions of Americans are inspired and involved in these programs that I've established. And I've found that project after project, I do another one, and I can't wait to get it still another one. I mean, it's just, it's a joy to give back what you have and what you've learned and what you want to pass on. That's a great question.
How do you think your experience in the military has helped you in regular life? Like the traits you learned in the Navy, how have they helped you?
Well, I get back to the fact that you know that if you're a reasonable leader, that you can get people to do things and execute their job and do their part in whatever it is that you have to do. My time in the military, it taught me a love of another more than I ever had realized, in that you're in battle and the guy next door to you would give his life for you and you give it for him, because the relationship is just that tight, that close under wartime conditions.
So many of those people, you said you became very close and you gained a strong sense of camaraderie with the people that you served with. Did you stay in touch with all those people late into your life?
Right, I've stayed in touch. One group of my officers, we had a round robin letter that we'd pass around, and once a year it would come by. But I'm the only survivor, so I have nobody to write to. All I can do is talk to you guys.
Yeah, so earlier you mentioned a couple programs that you've set up that are service-oriented. Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Well, yeah, one is that I'm a veteran, and I honor veterans. I thought, how can I do my part to pay my respect to those with whom I've served? And so I came up with the idea of honoring veterans at colleges on fall football games closest to Veterans Day. And it's now, there are about 600 colleges who do that, and thousands of high schools who now each, their home game close to that veteran, now I say Armistice Day, that's the old thing. The Veterans Day, they are honoring veterans. Not too bad. Another thing that I guess my greatest passion is good sportsmanship. I mean, it just really annoys me to see things not go quite the way they might. And so now I've got colleges all over America. My philosophy and my procedures are taking place. For example, at Stanford, you guys go to the Stanford football games? You guys, well, for years at football games, the game was over and both teams would leave the field. Well, it seemed to me to be an unfair deal. I mean, the students were rooting for their team win or lose, and the game is over and the team shoves off. And so I said, well, I went to Jim Harbaugh when he talked at Stanford and said, Jim, this is not right. Why not have your team remain on the field and have an interaction with your fellow students? It's an important college experience. And all join together and let's sing as one group the school alma mater. So that happens now at Stanford and all across America. And that's one example. My experience at Notre Dame, you'd like to hear about that? I mean, Notre Dame is the #1 football school in America. I guess you'll agree to that. Well, the athletic director and the coach about 4 years ago put out a letter to all the students saying that if we win, the team is going to stay on the field. If we lose, the team is going to leave. Well, alumni were furious, students were upset, but nobody did anything. I wrote to the president, got nowhere. I wrote to the athletic director, got nowhere. And then I used my military experience. I thought, I went to the student body president. I said, when I was at Annapolis, I had a job like you, and one of my chores was to find things that would burnish the image of the United States Naval Academy. I said, you have just such a situation there at Notre Dame. And the student body bought in, and we first have to establish her position, so she went out and she got over 100 letters from students wanting to change, and went to the football team. They had a vote, and the vote was 102 to overturn the coach and the athletic director of the University of Notre Dame. That's my biggest triumph in sportsmanship, but it still gives me pleasure to talk about it.
Yeah, so moving on, Bob, do you have any advice for young people today relating to the importance of public service?
Well, I guess never forget there are other people around that you can help. And it doesn't require a paycheck or taking a job assignment, but it just gives one a feeling of pure joy to give something of oneself to others. And that's the pleasure that I get out of my actually, I'm on a project there at the Naval Academy, and for 50 years, I've had self-service to the Naval Academy. They have 4 traditions, ceremonies that came out of my head that they execute. 9 parts of the Naval Academy, 9 components, the brigade, blah, 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 I have made major contributions to. And nobody has to tell me that the rewards are just enormous. I mean, they're so good. I'm sitting here and I sort of moisten up at what joy I get from giving to others. In this case, my school, and that's the pleasure of public service. I mean, unless you do it, you don't get it, and if you do it, you get it.
Yeah, Bob, so adding on to that, I know that you were very involved in Boy Scouts as a kid. How do you think Boy Scouts affected did it lead on your path of a full life of public service?
Well, I think that, I was a Boy Scout back in the 1930s. That's a long time ago. And there were no Girl Scouts. I shouldn't say that. Erase. Get back.
Girls are allowed in Boy Scouts.
That's right. That's a good thing.
It's called Scouts BSA.
But to me, Boy Scouts introduced me to subjects that I had no knowledge of. I mean, like bird watching, as an example. And it also taught me that there's a reward program for performance. For example, you got to work. If you work, you get a merit badge. I mean, there's a sash over there that's loaded up. I mean, I know there's room for more, I might add. But it's just, there's a joy that you get for doing something for nothing in terms of financial.
Okay, Bob. So that concludes the main part of the questions in our interview. But since we are on such a really relaxed time constraint, is there any last things you'd like to add concerning like the importance of public service?
Well, I say I've just had 50 years of it, and it's changed my life. I say it's made me happier, more productive, and you know, and I almost get tears in my eyes as I tell you how much selfless service means to me in my life. Mr. General Mattis, you know the general. This is a big thing in his life. He's an expert on selfless service, and I am happier. I couldn't be any happier than I am today, and the main reason is that I'm giving of myself to others, happily and willingly, and with great delight.